Well, I know what you might be thinking. Andrew Wyeth, painter from rural Pennsylvania, 50 plus years ago. What could he possibly show us about taking photographs in today's world? Well, if you give me a few minutes, I think I can show you something worth seeing, especially in today's noisy world. First off, to those returning, welcome back. Always glad to have you here. First time visitor, special welcome to you. What do we do here? Well, we look at all kinds of art on this channel. And the ones that stay with us, Monet, Dali, Hopper, they all share something amongst themselves. And here, we just try and discover all sorts of new ways they can share with us. So let's go take a walk. I guess this kind of boils down to my search for silence in a country that barely even slows down close to quiet. And when I say silence, I don't mean just quiet. Quiet's external. It has decibels. It's the absence of noise. To me, silence is internal. It's a presence that just vibrates just below hearing. And right there, that's where me and Wyeth found common ground. In everything that I've read, watched, and studied online and found in books, Wyeth never wanted anybody around him when he was painting. He wanted to be alone. I guess that's why one time he said he hated doing portraits because somebody kind of had to be there. But always remember, he worked a lot from sketches and memory. I think that part of the reason was not just being alone, but it gave him the silence that he was trying to share with us. Through open fields, curtains, half-open windows, doorways. He wasn't just painting silence. He was painting the thresholds to it. Sometimes we were looking out, and sometimes we were looking in. But always we were somewhere that he was searching for it. But here's the thing that took me a while to see the connection. It's where Wyeth painted over and over. The thresholds. And I'm learning how these thresholds can let me see a little bit differently through my camera. First painting we're going to look at is Christina's World. Yeah, it's quiet. Perhaps the only thing we could imagine hearing is the wind blowing through the tall grass. But it's more about what we feel. The silence of the image. Wyeth gives us a field that stretches forever, a figure that can't walk, and a house off in the distance. And that house, we just think that's where she wants to go. And for me on this one, it's all about negative space. But not just compositional negative space. When you give your subject room to breathe, you're not just emptying the frame. You're allowing it to be filled with whatever the viewer wants to bring. That space around your subject, that negative space, it just becomes the threshold for their imagination to walk through. Next one up is Wind from the Sea. Curtains gently blowing in the breeze, window half open. He puts us on the inside. On the outside, we see a road drifting off toward the ocean a little bit and a field just kind of disappearing into a silhouetted woodline. What does it mean? Well, in a 1965 interview with Life magazine, Wyeth said, "Something waits beneath it. The whole story doesn't show." We don't always have to show everything, explain everything in our images. Sometimes the subject in our image can just be the very thing connecting the two worlds that we just want to share a part of, letting the viewer connect to either one or both. We're not excluding anything. It's still there. What we saw and what we felt is just below the surface. So how can we show this in our images? Well, I think one way is selective focus. I'm not talking about narrow depth of field because anytime anybody says that, they just think, object close to the lens and everything else is blurry behind it. And yeah, that's still being selective, but I'm talking about maybe looking at being selective at something toward the middle of the frame and letting that be your threshold. That way that you're giving that foreground the opportunity for the viewer to come and sit with you, just like Wyeth did in a room. We feel like we're sitting there right there with him, looking at the embroidered birds on the curtains, just kind of, flying in the breeze. And right there, that's where I feel like Wyeth understood something pretty good that a lot of us forget sometimes. The viewer doesn't need the whole story. They just need to feel welcome enough to stay for a while so they can finish it themselves. Capturing silence in photography. Don't need any special gear. It's already in the camera you own. None of these that I mentioned above are complicated or revolutionary, and they don't need to be complicated because if they're complicated, then that takes most of the fun out of it, right? And one more I want to add. Some of it you can do in camera, and a lot of it's a little bit easier to do post-processing. is how we use contrast in our exposure. And I'm talking about taking it much further than, your usual high contrast, deep shadows. Yeah, that's cool stuff, but I'm talking about something different. And here I'm going to use selective again, just like we did with focus, but selective being, we choose where, not just globally in the image, whether we choose to use low contrast in some areas to calm that area a little bit, take focus away from it, or increase the shadows in one little bit of area to push it further to the background, or exaggerate a high key area just so only the details remain. There are multiple ways to explore. And if we can remember just one thing we want for our final images, is that we just wish that we take a breath before they speak, and even a whisper is still okay. So what did I actually find through all this? Well, still pretty much a work in progress, but I am by far paying more attention to a little voice in my head that says, why are you taking this image? I think a photograph truly works when it reflects how you felt when you pressed the shutter. But the real magic, the thing that Wyeth knew, is when the viewer can feel it too. As we study all types of art on this channel, we often find that art, it doesn't always, speak in complete sentences. Dali and Pollock for sure, even Hopper. Fun fact that Andrew Wyeth said that Hopper was one of his favorite painters. They all gave us that threshold that allowed us, to think. And to me, that's the magic of art. So the next time you're out with your camera, look for the thresholds, the half-open windows, the doorways, just the moments that whisper instead of shouting. Have fun with it, but as always, let's create something real.